I grew up in a polygamous cult, and this is part...
Welcome to Paranormal Night Shift, your home for all things that go bump in the dark, and your fan stories told here. Kids, we're taught to listen to our parents, listen to our elders, respect your elders, and do what you're told. But what if what you're being told is wrong, and you know it's wrong? What if your parents are involved in something wrong, and you know it's wrong, and goes against everything you know? Teddy's story today definitely covers that, and I hope you enjoy. Teddy writes in, I grew up in a cult. I know it sounds weird when I tell people that, but that's what it was. They called it a church, but there was no worship being done there. We spent all of our time at the church. All of our money went to the church, and that was what we did. That was my normal. I was about 8 years old when I first started realizing that the grown-ups, they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. They weren't keeping us safe. They were doing something wrong. We'd have these Sunday school sermons where they would preach to us respect and discipline. Lots of things that most kids do need to be taught, but they would teach it to us rather violently. I can't stand telling this story, but I vividly remember we had a class bunny, a bunny that they had bought from a store. They used this bunny to teach us about responsibility, how if you don't feed your responsibilities, that responsibility will go away. So that's what they did. We had a bunny, and we weren't allowed to feed it. We weren't allowed to play with it. The bunny just lived in a cage. It lived in a cage for about 2 weeks with us not giving it any food or any water. We watched the bunny be joyful and happy when we first got it, but every day the bunny would lose more and more will, more and more strength, until, well, you guess what happened. At 8 years old, they made us bury the bunny so that we could know what it was like to suffer. One time they made us walk through the gravel driveway with no shoes on so that we could know what pain felt like. I remember the blisters and cuts. We walked around outside in the hot heat all day long, no shoes on, up and down this gravel driveway. And I do remember telling my parents, but they just didn't care. They told me that the church was teaching me things that I needed to learn. They kept us separated from our parents most of the day. When we were out there, the parents would go one way and the kids would go another. For 6 hours a day, I remember doing this all the time. I was about 11 when I really started realizing that there were bad things happening. Everything was supervised. Restroom breaks, meals, all of it. We all went in a group. You never got to be by yourself. I had an idea one day that I was going to explore. I was going to find out what was really happening here. So after we had had a meal, I told them I needed to use the restroom. Of course, they were agitated, and you never got to go by yourself, but I told them it was an emergency. I played it up as much as I could. I told them that if I didn't go now, I was going to end up going in my pants, and that would be a problem. I thought that day would be my way out, but it wasn't. They didn't care. In fact, I did end up going in my pants. They made me wear it all day long to teach me a lesson about humility and control. I gave up after that. I did whatever they asked me to do. The grown-ups knew best, right? I knew it was wrong, but literature, music, books, things that the church didn't approve, we weren't allowed to have. We didn't have any of it. I couldn't find a way to find information. Everything that I was given to read, everything I was given to watch came from the church. The families that left the church, they were shunned. You weren't allowed to have any contact with them anymore. You weren't allowed to talk to them. In fact, there was a girl who had left the church about my age. I saw her one day and I tried to talk to her, but her parents and my parents looked at us and we weren't allowed to say anything to each other. My parents shunned me. They disciplined me that night for trying to talk to her. But I guess she understood. The girl understood that I needed a way out. She must have understood that I needed out because I started finding gifts. I started finding gifts on my walk to school. Things that she would leave, I guess, in bushes or in mailboxes or out and about. I knew I wasn't supposed to have this material, but she would leave it out there for me, and it went this way for about a year. Every day I'd walk to school, I'd find something new, materials that I had to hide from my mom, things that I couldn't let my family know. I knew that I would be disciplined if my family found it, so I'd hide them the best that I could, under my bed. My dad started doing random searches when he found one of them, but I had hiding spots everywhere. I'd hide them to where nobody would ever find them, and I'd read them, information about the church, information about what was happening outside of the world, all while playing the game. I took on new responsibilities. I wanted them to think that I bought in full, that I believed everything that they were telling me. I know that I didn't, and they knew, maybe they knew that I didn't, but I definitely put on a good act. I made sure that they saw it, and I started getting more freedoms because of it. At 13, maybe 14, I could go throughout the church by myself. We were never allowed to go upstairs, but I made up this lie about stomach issues so that I could have maybe 5-10 minutes of freedom. I ran up those stairs as quickly as I could. I had to find out what was going on. I didn't even know what I was looking for. I didn't know what I was going to find. I didn't know what I was expecting to find, but I opened every door that I could, and that's when I saw them. I heard my mother's voice, so I opened the door to where she was, and I saw her there, naked, being disciplined by my father. My father had found some of my magazines, some of my reading material. I thought it was the girl, but it was my mother the whole time. I was shunned from the church. They got me out that day. I wasn't allowed to even say goodbye to my mom. But in the final magazine I found, my mother had written me a letter. You have to run. You have to get out. They will catch you. You have to leave. Never come back to this place. Never do anything that you were told. I'm sorry, but this is the only way I could get you out. I love you, darling. I'm in my 20s now. I was sent to go live with my aunt, who explained to me that she was shunned, kicked out of the church as well. But we can't do anything about it. The church is actually considered a religious establishment. They have some sort of lawyer, some sort of something that protects them. If people really knew what was happening, they would be shut down. They're abusing and they're hurting people. But that's what I have. That's all the information I have. I love Paranormal Night Shift because you do lots of stories about things that go bump in the night. But please understand that sometimes real people are far scarier than those that are made up.